Hashem Yisbarach. Yom Shlishi, the Parshas Vayikra. Shnas Tovshin Ayin Vav, Yeshiva Tiferes Avigdor. There is an interesting, the Pasuk begins with Vayikra El Moshe, Hashem called Moshe. So the Sifarnu says, Tamid Mitoich He'onah, means Hashem called Moshe always. Ke'inyan, like it says by Har Sinai, and Hashem called to Moshe the seventh day Mitoich He'onah. Why? Ki lo yikanes sham la'olam v'lirishus. Moshe Rabbeinu never entered the Oyel Moyed to talk to Hashem without Rishus. And that is what he says the Pasuk conveys to us, that Vayikra El Moshe, that Hashem always called to Moshe. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu was as close to Hashem as anybody could be. Nobody ever had HaKadosh Baruch Hu for Chavrusim. There were people that had Malachim for Chavrusim, Rishonim, but to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoid v'atzmai, we can't, and it's beyond our imagination. And yet, still in all, with all of the shaykhs, Moshe Rabbeinu never approached the Oyel Moyed until he was called. So if you take a look in the Medrash says like this: Mikan Amr. From this pasuk, our Chazal derived a lesson, a very strong lesson. Kol Talmud Chacham she'ein bo deya, any Talmud Chacham that has no deya, nevela, a carcass of an animal, is toiva heimen. You hear what it says here? Any Talmud Chacham who has no deya, and nevela is toiva heimen. Teda lacha shekein. Arayah, this is how it is. Say ulamad mi Moshe, go and learn from Moshe, Avi HaChochma, Avi HaNeviim, the master of all Chochmas, the master of Neviim, Shehoitzi Yisroel miMitzrayim, Val Yodai Nase Kamenisim miMitzrayim. Many miracles we had because of him. V'neirois al Yamsuf, v'olo l'shmei moroim, v'hoyrid teira min ha-shamayim, v'nis'asik b'mleches ha-mishkan, v'loi nichnas lifnai lifnim. And he didn't enter the Oyel Moyed ad shekaru lo, shenemar, Vayikra El Moshe Vayidab. Now the question is, it's amazing, from this sukkah, this pasuk, this opening statement, they learned a very powerful, that nobody should, we learned 2 years, say this. First, the fact that Hashem called Moshe, you might have said that Hashem called Moshe because he loved him. Hashem knows his chibah. He loved Moshe Rabbeinu, so when he wanted to speak to him, he called him Moshe, Moshe. But if Moshe wanted to go, talk to Hashem, he was close to Hashem too. Two-way street. Zok Eresh Tezach Chazal teach me That Vayikra Moshe teach me Hashem loved Moshe. And when Hashem wanted to speak to Moshe, Hashem called Moshe. But in spite of the fact that Hashem loved Moshe, Moshe never dared to approach the Oyel Moed without being called. That's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is, it says, that had Moshe approached the Oyel Moed without being called, Parsha, there would have been a siman that he's an ein boidei. It would have been a siman he's an ein boidei. The fact that he approached with being called was an indication that he had day. And they said that a Talmud Chacham, if you would have asked me, I would have said, Chacham has felt the shtickle, acts a little hamish with the Bnei Shalom, after all, you know what I mean? I could understand it. And a dead carcass is better than it. Very strong language. Why is it such a strong language? It's a pshat. So you have to first know, what does this mean? What exactly is the day we're referring to? In 1781, the Austro-Hungarian Empire wanted to make a gzeira to close the Talmudei Torah. They wanted to mechayev all the Jewish children to learn in the general schools, and they should learn the languages. And you understand, the Gedolei Yisroel were misnaged to this strongly, because they felt it would be a tremendous destruction of Klal Yisroel. At that era, there was one of the Maskilim, the enlightened Jews, wrote a sefer, and he called it Divrei Shalom Ve'emes. That was just, there's a whole sefer was masbir at length the great benefit that's going to come out from this gzeira. That if, and one of the central rayas that he brought to his shtickle Torah of how important it is this chazal. It says, Kol Talmud Chacham she'ein boideya nevei l'toivim. He said all the government wants to do is to increase the deya by the hamoinam, and without that, it's the veil of toivim. So this maskil, or this tippish, understood deya, Talmud Chacham she'ein boideya, is cultured, world knowledgeable in the ways of the world, and knowledgeable in the more you know about the world, the education, that makes you sabar day. So he said, no, now it'll be people that'll be Talmidei Chachamim that have Daas. So the Noidib Yehuda B'Shaitoi got very angry at this, and he put out a ganze tshuva against this sefer. And he was Masbra, the guy learned falshe pshat in this chazal, because that's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about people who are cultured and who have the yisoid of the Daas that we're talking about. What's the midah of Daas here that Moshe Rabbeinu exhibited when he did not go to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without being called? The Shalom says that Daas is Yira Shamayim. That means the knowledge of with Moshe Rabbeinu was aware of with whom he was dealing with. He knew what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was. He knew of the covenant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And even though he had more familiarity, more than any other Nivra, that did not diminish his awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but rather it magnified him. And therefore he would never go unless he was called. So Rabbi Yerucham says an interesting thing. He says that if you take a look in the Mesilas Yesharim, in the parak of Midas HaZehirus, Chazal say as follows: Kol mi she'ein boideya osel rachem olav. In the Midah of Zehirus, that's where the Ramchal brings down this Maimer Chazal. So he says, L'chayra, why did the Ramchal find it appropriate, of all the Parakim, and all the Midas, and all the levels that he discusses in the Sefer Mesilas Yesharim, why did he find it most appropriate to consider somebody who lacks Zehirus and Ein Boideya? Normally, you would think, he says, not like that. What's the shaykhis of an Ein Boideya to somebody who doesn't have Zehirus? It could be in any other program. All the program talking about wonderful midas. So he explains that if you take a look in the Ramchal and Mesilas Yesharim, he explains what's the secret of Zehirus. What's the uniqueness of a person that's Zohir? You know, Yoni? You know what is Zehirus? What's the Nakuda of Zehirus? The Nakuda of Zehirus, he says, Sheyehei ha'odam misboinein umifakeach al maisa v'drachav. A person should take full achrayas on his behavior, on his actions, and on the course of life that he's traveling on. And he should not be hoylech b'mahalech hergelot. He should not go according to his route, his habits. The loy liyos, and he shouldn't be like someone who's just running in a race. Kisus shoyteif babel chom. Hear that? So he says the Nakuda of Zehirus is a person who is a misboinein, who's on top of his game. Someone who has Daas, and he's in control of himself, and he's able to analyze and critique his maisim and his behavior. Is it right or is it wrong? Am I making the right choices in life? Am I doing the right things? And he says in Perek Gimel that this Eitzah, this Gavaldik Midah of Zehirus, he says, you can't begin to fathom this Midah, only somebody, and appreciate the greatness and importance of this Midah, only someone who's already Yotza, Shekfar Yotzu, Mitachas, Yidei Yitzram, and you already went out of the control of the Yitzhar. But somebody who's in the Yisoid of Zehirus is someone who's a Moishel al Atzma. Someone who has control over himself is a Zohir. That guy is a Bardei. The person who has no control of himself is not a Bardas. That's a person that's an Ein B'das. A Gibor HaMoishli Beruchai, that is what a Bardei is. Kol mi she'ein b'deya osir l'rachim alav, a person who has no control over himself. And it's tremendous insight. Because people don't have any control over their behavior. People do things the way they want to. They act completely creatures of habit, without any cheshbon in their life of what they're doing, and whether what they're doing is correct or right, whether their pathway of life is correct. And this is what Chazal tells us. You know why Moshe Rabbeinu did not go in to the Mishkan? Not because he didn't want to. He was dying to go into the Mishkan, to talk to Hashem. There was no one who was as close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Moshe was. There was no one who yearned and was a Mevakesh Hashem like Moshe was. There was no one who wanted for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to show him wanted to know more and more about Hashem non-stop. And you want to know why he didn't go in? Because he is a Daas. Because he's a person who had control of himself. And he made a cheshbon. What's right? Not because we don't go in. You know why? Why does a guy not go into the basement? You know why? Because he has no Daas. He's a baby. He has no interest in being the basement. His interest in being every place else but the basement. He has to have complete Daas to force himself into the basement. Moshe Rabbeinu, and the state the Chazal nerdy gesagt, that if Moshe Rabbeinu would have had been the Talmud Chacham he was, but he wouldn't have had the Daas to control himself against going in when he wasn't called. All his milas, all his Chacham, everything is Batal Muvut. Because the ganze secret of man's power lies is that the man is a Moshe. The man is enabled. Man was granted a koyach to be Moshe on himself. U'deloi dabei mabei. That is what. Now the shaila is, why did Hashem, the Chazal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, put this lesson over here right in the beginning of Karbonos? Why is it the beginning of Karbonos? Why is it the beginning of Karbonos? And the answer is, perhaps, that in the beginning of Karbonos, what is the first Parsha the Torah discusses? The Parsha of Oila. What does an Oila come for? An Oila is mechaper for hirhure halev. Chazal tell us that Eov brought Karbonos at the end of his Mishnah, the beginning of Eov. You know why? Because he said maybe during they were partying and they were having shikras, so maybe his banov, his children, were mechashev machshavos SHLITA. Now, what is the pshat in the carbon oila? The Rashi says, because it's a chet that no one's makirin, only HaKadosh Baruch. Whereas a carbon chatas comes for transgressing serious sins b'shayk. So there's a carbon oila that a person has to bring for a hirhurah. So the question you have to ask is as follows. The Ramban writes, in the beginning of Vayikra, Parshas Vayikra, what's the concept of a carbon? What's the concept of offering a carbon? That a person should think that he sinned to Hashem, begufay ubenafshay, and his life is deserving to be taken. His guf is deserving to be burnt. Lulei chesed haboyre, if not for the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shelokach mimenu tmur. You understand? A person should bring a korban to think, my blood should be spilled, my guf should be burned. The chesed of Hashem was, he accepted an exchange. A tmur. What did he say? Bring this korban and you're going to chaper this dam for your dam. This nefesh tachas nefesh. So you have to understand, Does somebody who's over on a mitzvah saseh, or somebody had an hearer usher, is it royaloi sheyishafech damoi and yisaref gufay? Does it need a zamin special chesed to be poide his nefesh with karbonis? Bishleima mensch that was over the 36 chatoyas, serious averis. Okay, you can understand that. But on this aver, and that's the first carbon it brings down here. But when the Torah introduces us in a Parsha of Kabbanis, what does it say? Adam ki yakriv bikem carbon. You have to understand, the Torah tells us, carbonos are something which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave for B'nai Adam. You have to know, the Adam is someone who has Das. The difference between the Adam and the Behemah is not in the fact that we have legs and he doesn't, because he's got 4 legs. We have 2 eyes, he has 2 eyes. He has ears, we have ears. Where's the mile of the Adam over the Behemah? Behemah is Ba-Ma. Here there's no Das. A Behemah has no Memshel on himself. Whereas an Adam is somebody who has a Memshel on himself. And if the Torah tells us, don't stray after levavchem, that means zuminus. You know what that means to say? You have to think about this. Who is the Torah talking about in this thing? You know what the Torah is telling us? If you have a person who is faced with a thought of minus, it's possible for a person to be neiful b'daitai, a thought that maybe there's no HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not in charge. And the guy starts to ponder this thought. That's a lav in the Torah. The Torah says, Lo yisasuru acharei levavchem zu minus. And then it says, V'lo yisasuru acharei levavchem acharei neichem. That's znus. You know what the Torah is telling us over here? That it's possible for every human being. If you would ask us, we would tell you that's not child. Maybe I don't think about the one. It's not child. I mean, it's 24/7. I mean, it's what are you thinking about? You're not thinking about Torah, but you're Chaim. What do we think about? You know what I mean? Hebrew and Raya, people think about. Young people, hormones, natural, organic hormones, grass-fed, Yisroel fed, whatever it is. But a mensch knows it's all pure Yisroel. That's the average guy. Do you think he controls himself? He says, "Not Chaim." You know why? He's not another. Behemoth. That's a behemoth. If you see yourself as a behemoth, then a behemoth can't control himself and his thoughts. Not shaykh. An Adam, however, is shaykh. An Adam is shaykh to control exactly what there's nothing that forces me to think evil thoughts. That's my choice. Now, there may be something that pops into your mind at some point in time, and you're challenged with a thought. Maybe a thought of Emunah too. But everybody has the ability to switch the channels. There's a very interesting thought on this subject in the Likutei Moharan. The first Chelik Reish Lamed Gimel. He has a very interesting thing over there. You know what he says? It's impossible for any person in the world to think 2 thoughts simultaneously. No one could think 2 thoughts simultaneously. You could chew gum and take a walk simultaneously. You can eat and kick somebody simultaneously. But you can't have 2 thoughts simultaneously. He says, therefore, it's really an easy proposition for a person to drive out any bad thoughts from his mind. Just choose to have another thought. Think in Torah. Or avoid think in business, he says. In Mela, it's automatically mistalik. You know why you don't? Because you don't want to. You want to concentrate on that thought. You want to ponder that thought. That's why when sometimes people have obsessions, and the thought keeps coming back. But that doesn't mean you can't change your thought process. Now there are some people who are Rahman al-Islam, the thought has such a grip on them, though I'm not 100% sure if the thought has the grip on them because they gave in to that thought, or the thought keeps coming back to them even if they keep driving it out. I don't know. Because I see the very same people in other subjects are able to switch their thought process. So they perforce have to be going back to that sugya constantly. No person can have two thoughts at the same time. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us, Adam ki yakrav mikem korban. A person who wants to bring a korban because he realizes an Adam. And he realizes an Adam's koyach is his memshel hadas, his rule of das. That's where man's koyach lies. And now he wants to make a decision. So why did you have that hirura? We're not talking about the hirura that just popped into his mind. Talking about the guy that made a machshava. He consciously decided, I'm going to think about this thought. Just like the guy who consciously decides, I'm going to think about whether Hashem exists or not exists. There are many thoughts that you'll hear people tell you are driving me crazy. They're pushing, making me meshuk. You know why you have those thoughts? 99% of the cases, because it's an important thought to you. It's important to you. And if it's not important to you, or a person who has no mind control because he trained himself to be a behemoth, and he always lets his mind can be controlled by his guf and by his urges, so he can't imagine vice versa how an Adam could actually control his thoughts. A person is capable in all the situations of controlling his thoughts. And that's where the gadlus and the das of Adam lies. But if a person learns Torah, he's a Talmud Chacham, and he's an Ein by day, no das, no control. He can't exhibit any control over himself. Whatever he wants, he has to do. Whatever he wants to think about, he has to think about. Whatever he wants to say, he says. Whatever he wants to do, he has to do. There's a lot of them that come like that. They can't help themselves. You say, what's the pshat? Because that's a chamor noises for him. That individual never acquired the das. The Torah never imbued him with das. The das is the koyach ha'adam, strengthens the adam, and gives him mind control over himself, over his machshavas, over his diburim, and over his ma'asim. So the first thing a person has to do is he has to understand the secret of the koyach ha'adam. Second, the thing that the person has to start to think about is b'misboinim. He has to start thinking and contemplating his ma'asim. And he has to start exercising and showing. Of course, if you don't, not doing Averis, you don't do Averis, that's not a simon of Yesh by Das. Yesh by Das is when you don't want to learn. You're sitting down for a second Seder, and you're feeling a little bit sluggish, and you say, Das, I'm going to mechazik my Das, and I'm going to learn because that's the right thing. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to learn, and I'm not going to allow my mind to be dragged away. I'm not going to be my mind, allow it to be led astray. then that person is a bar das. That's a person who's a bar das. Now the Chazal said, why is nevela toiva? Why is it nevela? A dead animal is better than what's the pshat? It should say a behemoth is better. It's a dead behemoth. Person who has no das, even a dead behemoth is better. Because a dead behemoth, the pshat is, everybody knows how bad it smells. Everybody knows to take a wide berth. But a Talmud Chacham Shein B'Deya, everybody thinks, wow, it's a Talmud Chacham, it's very impressive. You know, Mechab, how bad and how dangerous and how bad of an example this person is. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to know. Vayikra Moshe was a Moshe Baruch. He was the ultimate Moshe. He says, Moshe, you're the Moshe. You're the ultimate Moshe. You were dying to come to me, but you didn't walk in without reshut. Only when you were cold. You demonstrated basic control, even when you wanted to do a good, that wasn't Aveira, you didn't want to do Aveira. You exhibited mind control in this situation. Now, you be the lesson. You teach the people about Kabbalas. Teach them what an Adam is. Teach them what the Koyach Adam is. That for every Hirah, you can bring a Korbanah. A person does that, then a person becomes a Yesh B'Das. Yesh B'Das, you got to be.